There's a train that comes from Namibia and Malawi. There's a train that comes from Zambia and Zimbabwe. There's a train that comes from Angola and Mozambique, from Lesotho, from Botswana, from Swaziland, from all the hinterlands of southern and central Africa. This train carries young and old African men who are conscripted to come and work on contract in the gold and mineral mines of Johannesburg and its surrounding metropoli. 16 hours or more a day for almost no pay. Deep, deep, deep down in the belly of the earth, when they are digging and drilling for that shiny, mighty, evasive stone, or when they dish that mishmash mush food into their iron plates with the iron shovel, or when they sit in their stinky, funky, filthy, flea-ridden barracks and hostels, they think about the loved ones they may never see again because they might already have been forcibly removed from where they last left them, or wantonly murdered in the dead of night by roving and marauding gangs of no particular origin. We are told. They think about their lands and their herds that were taken away from them with the gun and the bomb and the tear gas and the Gatling and the cannon. And when they hear that choo-choo train, a chugging and a pumping and a smoking and a pushing and a pumping, crying and a steaming and a chicken and a wah, wah, they always cuss and they curse the coal train that brought them to Johannesburg.
And welcome. This is Joni, and we have a special 3-hour program in store for you today in honor of Bill Lucy. I Am a Man, the life and legacy of William Bill Lucy. I am pleased to have as my special co-host today none other than Brother Jamil will be with me for the 3 hours. Chuck is going to join us in the second hour. The first hour, we're going to be speaking to the president of the United Mine Workers of America, who will have some riveting stories to share about Bill Lucy. Then we will be moving on to the current president of CBTU, the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists, Terrence, Melvin. Hour 2, we're going to be hearing some clips from a podcast called I Am a Man, which tells the story of the 1968 sanitation workers strike in Memphis, Tennessee. Some of you young people may not know enough about it. It's a very, very important story in our history, which we will be sharing tidbits of it. Then we'll be joined by our fellow sanitation workers right here in Washington, D.C., who will be telling some stories of what they continue to face, the hazards on the job. We'll be finding out, too, about the tragic recent deaths of 2 sanitation workers in Baltimore. No surprise, we haven't heard much word about it at all on the media. We'll be talking about that. Then, in the last hour, we're going to be hearing from another CBTU leader, CLAYOLA Brown. And last but not least, Brother Jamil is going to be blessing us with music for the last hour, music in honor of workers. This is our pledge drive, and I'm going to welcome Brother Jamil on to the airwaves.
Well, Joni, I couldn't tell you how great I feel to be with you this morning in studio here at WPFW. You know, it's an opportunity as the year draws to a close for us to reflect on the developments that have taken place around the planet this year, and certainly those things that are important to us as we move forward to grasp and gain control of our future. Nobody's going to do it but us. And here at WPFW, you have an opportunity today. We'll make that clear throughout these 3 hours that we spend together, that you can become a member supporter of WPFW. The way to do that is very simple. You may want to do it at any time during this presentation. Feel free. Just call 800-222-9739. Don't be like me, Mr. Marblemouth, but do it at 800-222-9739, or go to WPFWFM.org and make your pledge of support there on the website. You can even go $WPFWFM on Cash App. So we are excitingly equipped to move into the future here at WPFW.
Absolutely, and we have a goal each hour, this first hour, of $600. So we know that you can support us in that regard. There's also a new way to text a pledge, and we will find it sooner or later. But that's going to be an easy way as well, too, to make a pledge. And I'm very, very excited to have Brother Jamil on with me for many reasons. He's a brilliant musicologist, but he also happens to have known Bill Lucy, who we're spending much of the day, by the way, all day long until 8 p.m. at night. There are going to be various programs talking about Bill Lucy and also about the Black Workers Movement. And we are blessed to have Brother Jamil here with us, who has known Bill Lucy since he was 12 years old.
Now, since I was 12, not since Mr. Lucy was 12, but since
Brother Jamil was 12 years old. Yeah, so he can give us some firsthand thoughts about Mr. Lucy. But in a few minutes, we're going to be hearing from the President of the United Mine Workers of America. But Brother Jamil is going to start out with kind of a synopsis of Bill Lucy's life, and then I'm going to ask him, if he doesn't share with us, some questions about what he remembers when he was 12 years old.
Thank you, Joni. Let me also start by reminding you at the top of the hour, we did hear from Hugh Masekela, the legendary selection Stimela, the coal, C-O-A-L, train that brought workers, sometimes against their will, from locations throughout southern and central Africa into the mines where the resources of the mother continent were raped and taken away to various different shores around the world. Stimela, Hugh Masekela, as we examine the black worker and take a special look into the life and work of Mr. William F. Lucy. Now, Joni, if you don't mind, I want to just share something with you and the listeners, because most people who know the story of the 1968 strike by Memphis sanitation workers, a labor dispute that became a pivotal moment in the fight for civil rights, of course, they're familiar with the defiant slogan, "I am a man." Now, those 4 words became the unwavering bond among the 1,300 strikers and with the black community who supported their cause. But few knew and know that Bill Lucy actually helped to coin that iconic slogan. He had been assigned by AFSCME International President Jerry Worth to help the striking members of AFSCME Local 1733 in Memphis. He quickly showed he was effective in forging fruitful relationships with the Memphis community. And at that time, Mr. Lucy was only 34 years old. He collaborated with a local minister by the name of Reverend Malcolm Blackburn to create that slogan, a slogan small enough to fit on a placard, but powerful enough to inspire the strikers and unify the city. So they nailed it. They really did. I am a man. Deeply touched the core in black boys and black men and black grandfathers who grew up in the Jim Crow South, and some of us who grew up in the industrialized Rust Belt of the Midwest as well, without being treated like a man. Bill Lucy helped to give voice to their pride and humanity. And decades later, the spirit of this simple slogan still strikes a powerful chord in the heart of black folk and other people asserting their humanity around the world, Joni. So that's where the phrase came in. That's where it came in. Mr. Lucy's life, as we look at his life, and we're going to do this at the top of the program, a dear member, dear friend, dear supporter, dear brother, dear sister in the movement. We do this so that we can get a perspective of the man. Yes, we're going to be ringing the bell when you become a new supporter. Oh, we're going to be doing that on the air today. Yes, we're going to recognize your contributions. Yes, we're going to make sure we make a fuss over you. But right now, our focus is on Bill Lucy. And if we can teach and celebrate in the Bill Lucy era, if you will, there's an era that is named after him in labor history and in the global fight for freedom and justice. Because in his career that spanned more than 7 decades, Dr. William Bill Lucy was at the crossroads of history repeatedly, from Memphis to the Middle East to South Africa, from King to Mandela to Obama. His legacy is global. His longevity was phenomenal and inspirational. He remains the gold standard for courageous, visionary leadership. Bill Lucy was a transformative leader in the American labor movement and around the world. He carved his niche as a rising labor leader in the early 60s. And in 1965, he became president of AFSCME Local 1675, the Contra Costa County Employees in California. 1972, he was elected to AFSCME's International Secretary-Treasurer office and became the nation's highest-ranking black elected leader. Bill revolutionized the position. He skillfully transformed what was ordinarily a passive ceremonial post into a powerful platform to advocate on behalf of AFSCME members and oppressed people worldwide. In that role for nearly 40 years, Bill Lucy helped AFSCME grow from 200,000 to over 1.4 million members, Joni, in 3,500 local unions nationwide. He retired from AFSCME in 2010 as Secretary-Treasurer Emeritus. He founded the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists with a group of other founders whose names will go down in history, like names like Charlie Hayes and Nelson Jack Edwards and Cleve Robinson, William Simons, the legendary Leonard C. Ball. See, all of these names will go down in history because they are the names of the founders in the movement. So, Joni, there's a lot we could say. I don't want to go into what appears or could appear to be just a session where we talk about all Bill Lucy, but Bill Lucy is contingent and overlaps with so much that happened in the movement that it's just so much to think about. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm excited, and momentarily, hopefully, we're going to get to hear the president of the United Mine Workers of America, and we're going to find out how
my president.
His work links with the work of Bill Lucy. And I'm going to ask my brothers here to let us know if President Cecil Roberts is on the line with us. He should be on the line in a moment. I'm just going to spend a few minutes introducing him. And Brother Jamil and I were at the homegoing service for Mr. Lucy, and I must say, the president of the mine workers was one of the most, not that there was any competition, but he gave a powerful, riveting talk about the importance of Bill Lucy. So I'm just going to introduce him. If we need to call him, we can take a little music break, but let me just let you know that President Cecil Roberts, who's originally from West Virginia, he's sixth-generation coal miner, sixth generation. He served in the war in Vietnam. He was the chief negotiator for United Mine Workers' a famous 10-month strike, piston coal, a very successful strike for which he got numerous awards for that work. And for the last 7 terms, he's been elected as the president of the United Mine Workers of America. He's won the 2008 Eugene V. Debs Foundation Award. He's on the AFL-CIO's executive committee now, and he's done a lot of work with Bill Lucy, as we shall soon find out. If he is not on the phone, oh, he is. Okay, welcome. Welcome, President Cecil Roberts. We're honored to have you with us.
Well, thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for all the kind remarks. And let me start out by saying something that I think all of you already know. I love Bill Lucy for a number of reasons. We were really good friends. I don't think I've ever met more wonderful man in my life. He was not only a trade unionist, he was a civil rights leader, and he walked this earth, and the earth was so much better off for his presence here. He will be missed, but I do know where he is, as I said in the service honoring him. Sometimes we grieve and grieve and grieve, and then we have to pump the brakes and realize where this particular person is. And he spent 90 years earning the right to be where he is right now, and he wouldn't come back even if he could. He's just leaving it to us to carry on his work. And I'm sorry to be long-winded, but I thought I'd just let you know how I felt about Bill, and still do. And he leaves a lasting impression here.
Yes, absolutely. And let's keep in mind there are a lot of listeners, young people and maybe not so young people, who don't really know that much about Bill Lucy. I'm always surprised to find out. So I know you know quite a bit. And when I think about the mine workers and also think about the sanitation workers and the role that Bill Lucy played back in 1968 to bring attention to the horrific, inhumane, horrible, not enough words to describe the horrors that the sanitation workers had to go through in Memphis and are still going through today. And so there's a similarity between that and what the coal miners, of course, experience. But share with us some of your highlights. I know there are many stories about the role that Bill Lucy played, perhaps starting out with his struggle and organizing for better working conditions for all people, but specifically starting with the sanitation workers in Memphis.
But as we know, this was 1968. In 1968, I had not yet met Bill. I was in Vietnam and came home in May of 1968, and I was one of the fortunate ones that made it out of Vietnam alive and in one piece. The month before I left Vietnam, Dr. King was assassinated. A month after I got back, Bobby Kennedy was assassinated. I came across Bill Lucy actually in 1972. I was a young coal miner experiencing my first opportunity as a delegate to our national convention in Cincinnati, Ohio. And this young, dynamic African-American Secretary-Treasurer of AFSCME was introduced to speak. And he held that group of miners, probably 75% of which was white, in the palm of his hands. And I didn't come across Bill again to a few years later after I made my way to Washington. And we were in the midst of a strike ourselves. And we decided that we had to take action against the owners of the coal mines as opposed to fighting this out on the ground. And we were looking at that time, by the way, some of the strategies of the civil rights movement. And Bill came to our building and had conversations with us, as other civil rights leaders did. One of the things that's important here, we miss this a lot in our movements, is that Bill had this one quote he used over and over and over again in his speeches, and you probably heard it if you've heard him give speeches in the past. He said, we may not have all came over here in the same ship, but we're in the same boat now, meaning white folks
right.
working for a living and people doing dangerous work and the things that's happening, and we're all fighting these huge, powerful, wealthy organizations, and we don't even know where all the money's coming from sometimes. But when he came, getting back to the main point here, he came to our building, and the owner of the mines we were striking, name of the company was Massey Energy, was doing business in South Africa. And as you know, and everybody knows, Bill played a huge role in that anti-apartheid fight. And we started a boycott against this massive oil company, if you can imagine this. And he came over to tell us how to link that into the struggle of our brothers and sisters in South Africa fighting for their very freedom. And from that day forward, Bill and I talked all the time. And every time he had a struggle, he'd talk to me about how we could help. And I didn't mind at all asking Bill for help because he was a lot smarter strategy-wise than most of us. But within weeks of Bill leaving our building, I was in jail for demonstrating in front of the South African embassy and urging the freedom for those workers. We established, by the way, a relationship with the Coal Miners Union in South Africa, and in fact, loaned them $100,000 to help in securing their freedom and right to work now. And within weeks, Bill had taught us what solidarity, not just in the United States, meant, not just across pathways here and people you know and fights you can see, but it's important to engage in these fights around the world, and with the theory being if anybody can be enslaved, all of us can be. For example, that very fight. I had to do this myself from times because a lot of folks saying, "Why are you spending money and engaging in this fight all the way in South Africa?" I said, "Well, let me explain something to you. They mine coal in South Africa. And if they can mine that coal without any labor costs, that coal's going to make its way to the United States, and you're going to have to compete with it." Now, the question for you is, do you want to compete with companies exploiting workers in South Africa? And the only way you can compete with that is for you to lower your wages to the point of what they're getting. And so it's all of us in this fight. Back in the day, years ago, people ran off to the South, companies did, shut their mines down or shut their plants down in Detroit and Chicago to go where cheap labor was, and that was in the South. And at that point in time, and today, they're running all over the world, as we know. But Bill taught us a good lesson there. Now, how did I learn from him about his experiences? we became, as I said, friends, and we talked frequently. We'd see each other and talk about issues that one or the other was dealing with. I had Bill speak at our convention in Las Vegas. I had Bill speak to our pensioners who were fighting for their pensions and health care. That fight lasted 10 years. Bill came to St. Louis. He got caught in the rain. It was outside in front of the largest coal company in the world's offices. We traveled back to the airport in St. Louis together. The plane didn't leave on time. We went to get dinner. We talked for a couple hours there. He had me come to CBTU, one of the great honors of my life. Not only did Bill invite me there when he was president of CBTU, so Terry's had me there too. We have a close connection with CBTU and the civil and human rights movement. I spent the evening with Bill, just the two of us, the first time I went to CBTU, and we talked exactly about the sanitation, where I was fascinated with the civil rights movement.
Pitch break here, and you're listening to WPFW. This is our end of the year pledge drive, and we are happy to thank one of our faithful listeners, Marcia Lilly, for making a generous pledge.
Yes, indeed.
We only have $500 to go, $500 for this hour. You can make that pledge by calling 202-588-9739. You can also go to our website, wpfwfm.org, and click Donate Now. And we have some new fancy ways of making the pledge as well.
Yes, the fancy way. You just send you go to your text on your phone. You text this to 801-801. You ready? Here it is. Send WPFWFM to 801-801 on your text. And that's how you set in motion your donation, your contribution, your affirmation of membership, participation, and belief in WPFW. We really appreciate you.
And we're going to go back to President Cecil Roberts in a moment, but Brother Jamil has a special little music to play in honor of those coal miners.
Some people say a man is made out of mud. A poor man's made out of muscle and blood. Muscle and blood and skin and bones. A mind that's weak and a back that's strong. You load 16 tons. What do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. I was born one morning when the sun didn't shine. I picked up my shovel and I walked to the mine. I loaded 16 tons of number 9 coal, and the straw boss said, well, to bless my soul, you load 16 tons. What do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. I was born one morning, it was drizzling rain. Fighting and trouble are my middle name.
Okay, and welcome back. We're glad to have President Cecil Roberts on with us for about another 15 minutes. Again, the President of the United Mine Workers of America, and I know he remembers that song way back in the 50s when that song about the workers was a very, very popular song. I know my dad used to sing it all the time. You remember it, President Roberts, right?
Yes, Tennessee Ernie Ford. He used to be on TV station back home. I don't know if they went all the way across the United States.
Yes,
it was early days of television, by the way.
Yes, and it was a big hit in New York City, I'll tell you that much.
That's our homeboy from Bristol, Tennessee, Tennessee Ernie Ford.
Yes. And President Roberts, I just wanted to mention something. Of course, in this country, people do not often know the connections between and within labor movements. And as we're talking about this morning, there is definitely a connection between the United Mine Workers and the work that Bill Lucy did with AFSCME and the sanitation workers. And I just wanted to mention to you, Cecil Roberts, listeners may not know that it was not until 1970 that this country enacted an OSHA law, occupational safety health laws, to begin to provide some protection on the job for workers. And guess who was very instrumental in lobbying for and making sure that that law was in place? And that was the medical director of the United Mine Workers of America, Lauren Kerr, who I was blessed to work with. Isn't that right?
It's exactly true, and I knew him, by the way. When I first came to DC, he worked under the vice president's office, which I was at the time. Obviously, I later became president, but Lauren Kerr and I knew him well.
Yes.
And I was blessed to know him, and brilliant man.
Yes, and President Roberts, we're going to invite you back in the future to talk about him. I was very close to him as well, and he actually played a pivotal role in the struggle for universal health care, which we're still on that battlefield. But let's get back to Bill Lucy and some of the things that he did. And Brother Jamil, you can jump in with a question or comment,
Sure,
if you'd like. But our role here is to make sure that people really know the role that Bill Lucy plays.
No
A
doubt.
lot of people do not know him.
You know, President Roberts, I really appreciate you being with us this morning. This is Brother Jamil. I wanted to horseyback off something you talked about at the homegoing service for Mr. Lucy. You talked about the frontline strategic capability of the man. You talked about him as a master of tactics as we struggle for the concessions that often we found corporate interests very unwilling to secede to us. What were the things that you noticed about him as a strategist and a tactician in the movement, both in South Africa and certainly here in the U.S.?
Let me make one quick point so we can jump from the CBTU meeting when Bill had me come there in the evening we spent together. That ties directly into what you're asking. And so I heard him speak in '72 at our convention. And of course, we've been working with Bill on anti-apartheid movement and working with African Americans in the United States, and how we could help each other. We also were trying to figure out how to help our brothers in South Africa, and Bill was just brilliant with how we could do that. But I asked him, I said, what prompted you to speak at our convention in 1972? This is what he told me. He said, let me tell you something. If it wasn't for United Mine Workers, we wouldn't have a union. He's talking about AFSCME. Here AFSCME is the largest union in the country right now, right? And was enjoying that position when I spoke for the first time at CBTU. He said, your union loaned us money to lift us up and get us through some hard times, and I definitely wanted to be there to thank them for what they had done. I didn't know that happened before I became a member of the United Mine Workers, probably sometime while I was in the service when that happened, and I was pleased by that. Obviously, one union reaching out to another. But getting back to Bill's ability, I'm sure that he lost his temper at some point in time, but I never did see that. You could disagree with him, and he would listen to you, and then he'd come back and say, well, let me explain this to you. And one of the things that I loved about him, when he would reproach me. One time he was putting together a demonstration in front of the National Labor Relations Board in downtown Washington. And he said, he approached me, he said, what are you doing? I think it was on a Tuesday of next week, like I was going to lunch or something. I said, well, I don't know, don't think anything. He said, we could use you. And he said, we're going to block the entrance and we're probably going to jail. Then he says, we need a white guy. That's what this is all about.
Optics. It's about optics, right?
I said, I can do that. I said, it's part of my brilliance. So, of all things, though, we go down and block a federal building, right?
Yeah.
And you generally can get locked up pretty quick over that, and sometimes longer than you want. Mm-hmm. And they would not arrest us. And so Bill says, let's block the street. Now, we had about 20 of us, right? So we locked hands and we blocked the street. And traffic is at lunchtime, as you know, is bad enough without anybody trying to help it along. And we blocked the street, and I thought, well, they have to arrest us now. And they didn't. I would say this to people: you can have some of the greatest experiences of your life, reaching out, linking hands together with others who have similar views, and you'll feel so good about that.
Yes,
because
sir.
So many of us are frustrated, right? And rightfully so, about some of the recent things that's happened. And quite frankly, you can look at that at any point in time in history you want. But I spoke to him a lot about the attempt to organize the workers in 1968 in Memphis. Now, remember something. Dr. King died there. He was assassinated, and that's what Memphis is remembered for. And we remember the passing of Dr. King every year. On the 30th anniversary, the 40th, and the 50th, there's a lot of things that transpire, right? But the goal there was to help those workers who desperately needed organized and desperately needed a union and desperately needed a contract. So at the very least, they wouldn't die. That's number
Right.
one. That's their first goal in organizing. Second thing is that they be treated like men. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where Bill came up with, I am a man. What is organizing all about? Organizing is, and I use this in my speeches, if you want higher wages, join a union. If you want treated better, join a union. If you want a safer place to work, join a union. All the things that you want, you can obtain through a union. And I always, pardon my French, but I always close that long list of 15 or 20 things. And I ask the crowd to cite those things with me. You want equal rights on the job, join a union. You want equal pay, join a union. And then at the end, when I'm about to run out, I said, if you just want to be able to tell the boss to kiss your ass, you join a union. And I always get a nice standing ovation. That gets a bigger round of applause than any of those things I just mentioned, because people are pretty fired up by then. But Bill talked about that story. One of the things I would ask people to remember, when Dr. King was assassinated, Memphis was obviously a dangerous place, right?
Yes, sir.
So he leaves, he comes, he predicts that he may be killed. I mean, he did that the night before, if you know the history of this, and he is killed. Somebody stayed back there to continue to fight, and that was Bill Lucy. I want you to think about the courage it takes to pretty much be the focal point of a struggle, where the focal point, the leader, the day or so before has been assassinated, and there's people out there that are prone to do that. But you'll step in those shoes and continue your work every day. And he did get a contract. That part of the story is left out sometimes. We stop and rightfully so, with the assassination of Dr. King. But the next, probably just about as courageous piece of this, is Bill Lucy, those sanitation workers, and all those involved in this strike stuck it out. And and they didn't quit. They kept on fighting until they were able to achieve a collective bargaining agreement, and they've had a union ever since, thanks to their courage and Bill Lucy's leadership. Now, it would have been easy for Bill to say, we better let this cool off. I'm going to leave for a while. Let's all put this on the back burner for a while. But that didn't happen. This struggle continued. Bill knew that there was a certain amount of momentum built here. And the fact that Memphis lost a great leader here, and they were getting criticism for this, so the pressure, he understood that there was pressure here now for this entity to sign a contract, and those workers have enjoyed collective bargaining rights ever since then, and that would not have happened if you'd had a lesser man leading that struggle. And just ask yourself, if the person in front of you just was assassinated, and one of the most powerful, most respected people in the United States has just been assassinated, would you stay there? Would you see this fight? But strategically, I don't think there's a better illustration of strategy that exists, unless it would be how independence and freedom was won in South Africa, and I think if you just looked at those two events, and then, by the way, the formation of CBTU,
yes, sir,
uniting people of color into one organization so they can have conversations amongst themselves to say to people up the ladder, so to speak, and more powerful positions. This is what we need here if we're going to organize African American people and people of color. This is what we need, and you need to listen to us, and we're not going to go away. So,
yeah, and that's key. That element of gumption, if you will, Mr. President, the element of courage in the face of adversity is one of the elements that you and he, Mr. Lucy, binded on and connected with. And I dare say, based on my acquaintance with you and my knowledge of him, that has to have been one of the things that you and he shared in common. So we're very, very grateful that you are on our airwaves this morning. I'm going to turn it back over to Joni for the segue, but we are grateful to have been joined by one of the major leaders in the American labor movement today, the president of the United Mine Workers, the great Mr. Cecil Roberts. And I use the word great because I'm exercising the editorial prerogative of the host's chair. And,
thank you.
Yes. And President Cecil Roberts, we are going to be inviting you back on the air in the near future so we can continue to talk. And one of the things that is unfinished business in this country is our need for universal health care, in which United Mine Workers has always been in the forefront, and AFSCME has played a role too. So we know you can be happy to speak to us about that need. And just so you know, in the next hour, we're going to be talking to some sanitation workers right here in Washington, D.C., and hear about in Baltimore the fact that 2 sanitation workers died in recent months. The two died in Memphis in 1968, but we're not hearing about those deaths now. And I know, Bill Lucy, if I can kind of imagine Cecil Roberts, I know you probably can too. Bill Lucy, somewhere, speaking to your Dr. Lauren Kerr, from the United Mine Workers of America medical director, Bill Lucy and Lauren Kerr talking together about the need to continue to organize for the basic rights of working people, yes, and for universal health care for everybody. So we are very thankful, very, very thankful to have you with us this morning, President Cecil Roberts.
And just one last thing, I think you're $400 short for this hour. I'll make up that $400 for you.
Wow!
There it is. There it is.
Thank you so much. We appreciate
that. You got to pay to play around here,
right? No, that's bad language in this business. But I tell you, we are grateful for your support. We are grateful for both your material and your moral support, President Roberts. And for the workers you represent, we are greatly heartened this morning. They are well represented, and the future is bright. So, Joni,
Yes, and thank you, President Roberts. We're going to remind you as we wait for our next speaker to come on board, and that is the current president of the CBTU, Coalition of Black Trade Unions, Reverend Terrence Melvin, will be with us hopefully in one moment. But we are urging you to go to your phones, go to your computers, and make that a pledge. Make that pledge. Hopefully we have reached the goal for the first hour of $600, but we need your help still. You can, of course, call 202-588-9739, 202-588-9739, and get on those phones and make a pledge. Or you can go to our website, WPFWFM.org, click the Donate Now and scroll. You can scroll to Heal DC, Mondays at 10 a.m. and make that pledge. Of course, we're all in the same family, but we're urging you to make that pledge. And we also have two what I'll call fancy ways, or maybe it's, I don't know if it's easier for the youngsters to do these two ways. And one is by text. And I'm going to ask Brother Jamil to give out that way of doing it. And my dear friend Michelle reminded us that when we give out that text number, you need to add the amount you are pledging.
Yes.
The amount you are pledging, and it wouldn't hurt to add your name and the show you're pledging to, but definitely the amount. I'll say that Michelle has been on the air with us since the early days when we first started talking to the sanitation workers. So,
yes,
Brother Jamil, what is the?
Well, it is. You're right. You said it's newfangled. It's up to date. It's a newfound contraption. And here's how you do it on your text device. Just prepare to go into text and send to 801-801. Send the letters WPFWFM. That's WPFWFM to 801-801. Add the name and the amount, and the actual transfer of your support to the station will start rolling at that time. You can also go to Cash App. It's $WPFWFM. That's $WPFWFM. And we have it all lined up for you. As Joni said before, you can go to the website, WPFWFM.org, click Donate Now, scroll down to Heal DC, and then click on that you want to donate your support right now. And you make as large a donation as you possible. Remember, no donation is too small, and certainly no donation is too large. So we want to make sure that you all have the way to participate. Operators are standing by right now also at area code 202-588-9739, or you can go to 1-800-222-9739.
And Brother Jamil, we're going to give our imaginary drum roll, because we now have the president, the current president of the Coalition of Black Trade Unions.
Yes, indeed.
I'm going to have you introduce our fearless leader.
Yes, indeed. He is, and we welcome him back. I would say we welcome him, but we welcome him back from the frozen tundra of Western New York. He fanned out and made his influence felt everywhere. This is the president of the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists, our brother, the Reverend Darrell Melvin, and he is with us, and there are lots of things that he'll be talking about with us this morning. Reverend Melvin, so glad to see you, Mr. President. So glad you're back on WPFW. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well this morning in beautiful Western New York. I've been traveling all over. I was in Orlando for a couple of days, and I thought it was going to be warm down there, and it wasn't. Then I came to DC over the weekend. I thought it was going to be warm there, and it wasn't. Then I got back to Hamburg and I had to shovel some snow. So
you on a winning streak, huh? I'm
on a winning streak. I have to leave here and go to Albany tomorrow. So I am. I'm looking forward to what we have ahead of us, Brother Jamil. It's like a lot of folks are like depressed, but I went through that moment. I told everybody I had my 12 hours of what the heck happened around here, and now I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and do the work that we know we all have to do going forward.
Yes, indeed, and there is a considerable body of work. The questions that we have for you this morning are not lengthy in their.
Well, and I'm just going to interrupt Brother Jamil,
yes,
Reverend Melvin, I'm sure you may know that I'm going to say Brother Jamil's father was one of the founders of CBTU. And of course, you have recently taken the reins from Bill Lucy, who held that position for, I think, over 40 years with CBTU. But perhaps you could jump in and just share a couple of things you are proud of about CBTU and as you were about to talk about where you're heading now into the future.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been, I think I just celebrated my 10th year anniversary as president of the National Coalition of Black Trade Unionists. And the work that we have been able to do is to build the infrastructure across the United States. We have now 60 chapters in the United States. So one in Canada, one in the UK, and we're working on one in Nigeria now. That will be our first chapter on the motherland. But the work that we are looking to do is very similar to the work that we've done over the last 6 months. It is to get into the Black community, is to educate the Black community on issues of import to them. It is to educate and get information out to them. We are very excited as we leave 24. We're excited about the work that we did in the election. Now, look, the election didn't turn out the way we wanted it to or expected it to, but it is what it is. And as I said earlier, we have to live with what we have before us. We have before us someone that was elected into office, and he had the majority of votes. He had the Electoral College votes, and he is going to be the president as of January 1. Now, do I think that he's going to be in our best interest as Black folks or people of color in this country? I have my doubts. They've laid out their plan book. Project 2025, and when I heard many people say when somebody put a plan together, don't think they're not going to use it. When you look at who he's nominating or going to be nominating to key positions, half his family going to be in positions, and then the other half is other millionaires and billionaires. And I, as a working American, I don't know how anybody can think that a millionaire or billionaire can understand the needs of working America and working people that is throughout this country. So we are going to be putting together a very strategic educational program within our communities where we have chapters to really be able to educate people ongoing. And I think that's the problem that happened over the last 4 years. There was a lot of positive things that was being done by the administration for labor and for people of color, Black people in particular, but it was not told. The story was not told. The story did not get out there. And what got out there were the memes of different things about, how much grocery prices is. Well, you know what? A dozen of eggs is much more expensive today than it was when I was born. Prices go up every year. And if you just try to put a pin on one thing, that's when you get into the problem. And I think what we have to do, and that's what we're looking to do going forward as a coalition of Black trade unionists, is really get the message out there. When something is done positive, bring it up. When something is done negative, educate the people about it. And if you just educate people on the issues, we believe, as a coalition of Black trade unionists, is that when it comes time to elect people, not just at the national level, but at the local level, at the school board level, at the city and town and village level, at the county level, they will elect the right people if they have the right information. So we're going to be those information carriers starting in the second quarter of 2025 going forward. We're going to be the ones that are going to be laying out, letting people know what exactly is going on, what is happening that's affecting them and that's going to affect them or could affect them in a positive or negative way. Wow. Because everything's not going to be negative. Wow. My grandmother told me that a broke clock is right twice times a day.
Twice a day.
So every now and then they're gonna make a mistake and do something right. we gotta talk about that too.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So that's what we're looking to do. We're looking to live on the legacy that William Bill Lucy, my father in the movement, that he started when he created the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists. It was to be an institution that not only educated Black labor on how to move up within the movement, to give them the skill set to be able to lead within this movement, but it was also to be the connection between labor and the Black community as a whole. And we're going to step up our game even higher than we have in the past. We're going to be getting resources in. We're going to be really pushing out information.
It sounds like the intelligence and brilliance in the design of CBTU by Mr. Lucy is matched by the brilliance in your execution of those founding principles. And so we hear that enthusiasm and we respond to it in kind. My next question is simple. It is, in the founding of CBTU, and I'm paraphrasing here, but there was the idea that we would speak to the concerns of blacks within the labor union movement, expanding the labor movement, but doing so without breaking it, without crippling its overall purpose in the American economy. How successful have we been at CBTU in that, and what do you see as portending our future success?
When we look at the work that we were able to do within the labor movement, when Bill Lucy was first elected president of the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists in 1972, he was one of two Black leaders that was either in a primary or secondary role in any international union. Now, when you look around, we have 8 Black presidents of international unions, and I believe we're up to 12 secretary treasurers, which is the number 2 positions in international unions today. So we have, and then when you look at the national labor movement, the AFL-CIO, look, we have a woman for the first time leading the movement, and her number 2 is a Black man. So we have a woman and a Black man leading the labor movement. That is diversity at its best. And the best thing about that is these 2 individuals that were both groomed by Bill Lucy one way or the other, right? They get it. They understand the necessity of having an open labor movement that meets the needs of all the members of the movement, that there needs to be diversity, and there is diversity on the executive council of the AFL-CIO. They are really looking at how do we be more responsive to the needs of all of our members, not just a small segment of our members. They put more resources this time in when you look at the election cycle, more resources were put into Black and brown, women, the communities, the Asians, Pacific community, gay community, to really uplift the message of labor and working people within our communities. So we've got leadership that really get it, and that leadership is not by mistake. It is by the work over the decades that Bill Lucy did, that the leaders at CBTU did under his leadership, to really educate those in the labor movement that if you don't respond to the needs of your members, if you don't meet your members where they are, there will be no movement. There will be no labor movement. And we're working very hard to make that connection, continue that work going forward in everything you do. I mean, I currently serve as the executive director of the National AFL-CIO Racial Justice Task Force. The president of the Phillip Randolph Institute serves as a special advisor to the president of the AFL-CIO. So we have moved into key positions within the labor movement where the voices of Black and brown people are at the top and not at the bottom of the table.
Now that is the voice of authority. You're listening to the CBTU president, Reverend Terrell Melvin. And Rev. Melvin, stay with us. We're at the top of the hour. You're listening to WPFW at 89.3 FM right here in Washington, D.C. There's so much more that we could discuss and so much more that we have to share with you. Joni, I'm wondering how we can keep Reverend Melvin. I just want to keep him. Let's keep him.
We want to keep you for a little bit longer,
Yes,
Reverend Melvin.
Yes, sir.
And 2 points I wanted to jump in here. And again, you're listening to WPFW. This is our second hour of 3 hours today. I am a man, a life and legacy of Bill Lucy, with me, Joni, and with Brother Jamil. This is a part of a day-long program in honor of Bill Lucy and the Black Workers Movement. But I wanted to make at least 2 points about CBTU. One, Reverend Melvin, we're very thankful and proud that CBTU had the insight to create a youth arm, a youth movement out of CBTU. And I want to give special thanks to my friend, Shauna Peaks, who's very much involved with CBTU and helped to make sure that we were able to contact you for this interview. And thank you for making that commitment to involve young people in your leadership. Perhaps you could mention something about that. But also I wanted to mention that we here at WPFW look forward to the mobilization that we know that CBTU is going to be a part of, when unfortunately we may face in this region the perhaps firing of countless numbers of specifically of black workers, black federal workers.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we know that CBTU values organizing and organizing people, and we want to let you know that we want to be right there standing in solidarity with you, yes, as this begins to particularly hit this region in the United States. But anything you might want to comment about the young CBTU leaders?
Yeah, look, one of the things that was instrumental when I took over as president of CBTU was to diversify our leadership as much as possible. And part of our diversification is diversification by unions that are represented on our National Executive Council, and making sure we have a diversity in age. One of the key things that I understand, and most of us understand that study the movement and where we are and where we're going, is majority of the movement coming in, new union members coming in, are young and people of color. So what we need to do, and what we're striving to do with CBTU, we have a under 40 group, which is led by Melvin. And what they do is they come together on a regular basis to look at the issues around and see, how do we now speak to the young workers of today? We are grooming them for leadership, not only within our organization, but within their own unions, so that they can be able to come in and take the lead in many positions within their unions, and in many cases, take the presidency of the union, mm-hmm, or key, mm-hmm, positions within the union. Yes, it is important that we meet the need and meet these young people where they are, to bring them where we need them to be. Now, I understand that my days in front of me are far shorter than my days behind me, so I have to set the stage and make a way for young individuals to come in and have a place at the table. So we're working very hard with our young under 40 group to get them ready for leadership and put them in leadership roles within our organization, so that they can easily slide into leadership roles within their own unions. Right. And the other issues that you raise is the issue of federal employees in particular, where the threat has been made, the gauntlet has been put down, that many federal employees are going to be fired, summarily fired. Why? For doing their job, for being a lifelong federal employees that they give and serve the public through the work that they do. In many cases, they have been underpaid over the years. In many cases, they get less benefits than other workers, yet they continue to do the work. The public employees, the federal employees, and the current president of the American Federation of Government Employees, Dr. Everett Kelly, is on top of this. Another black brother that's in charge of a major union, heading the top of a major union, is on top of this. And we are working hand in glove with him on anything we can do to help educate and motivate both politicians and the members to do the right thing. We have to understand who the enemy is. And the enemy is not the union. The enemy is the one that's targeting, that has a target on the back of the union members that are out there that's simply trying to do their job and serve the public. So we are ready for the fight. We are ready for the battle. We are just waiting for Dr. Kelly to give us our marching orders. They are working on a plan, I know internally right now, to stave off as many of these firings as possible. So we will be working with him to ensure that as many people stay working that are working. These people are working because they care about the country.
Yes,
and
sir.
that is the simple truth about it. It is not, they're not politicians, they are simply workers. And that's what we want to do. Continue to allow them to do the job that they've been doing for years.
And Reverend Melvin, may I just jump in and add, you mentioned that perhaps, just perhaps, there may be some good things that come out of bad things. and one of the good things we want to emphasize that we're here on WPFW to be in solidarity with you as what may happen, in particularly in the district, the DMV as we call it, hitting black workers, black federal workers. We want to be working together with you to build a movement, a collaboration between media, between progressive media, and between the work that you're doing in labor and the work that needs to be done in the community.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. We are so grateful that you are here. And I joined Joni in her appreciation for you, really, because, Reverend Melvin, you have demonstrated, even in your manner of speech, the spirit of your words. And it's not just the letter of the word, it's the spirit of the word, of the urgency for us to organize, the urgency for us to work, the urgency for us to militate in favor of the rights of working people in America and around the world. In fact, it is that kind of thing that brings us, as we bring this segment of the program to a close. We invite everybody to stay. Certainly you, Reverend Melvin, you might have something to say later on. Just don't go nowhere. Just stay right here. But we are at WPFWFM.org all over the world. So if you want to listen live, make sure you do so. If you want to become a supporter of this great radio property, WPFW, make sure that you do that. And the ways to give, and we're going to review them with you in just a moment, but the ways to give, you can do it right now. Since you moved, I can see it right now. You know, one of the things that we have to do sometimes, we have to look off of that podium and look down in the pews and see when it's time to make a certain move, and the move has to be made right now. And we've got to ask you, go to your phone, pick up your phone, go to WPFWFM.org, click on Donate Now, and you can make your presence felt. You can make your support known. Go to 800-222-9739 and make your presence known. We want to make sure that we always back you up. And so before you go over there on Bailey, the United Men's, to buy a pair of orange and white faux alligators, don't do it. Don't. Now, hold up. I want you to stay with us, everybody around the country. And we are certainly glad that you were here. Joni, anything else before we get to the music?
We want to thank Anonymous for making a pledge from Alexandria, Virginia. And, of course, we can give out the text way of making a pledge.
Yes.
And the website, WPFWFM.org.
You text it to, you just go to, you get your text device, right? You text the number 801-801. But don't worry, go right in the narrative field and type in WPFWFM. And then you can start the ball rolling for your contribution to make that happen, okay? So we want to do it. Just keep it simple.
Okay.
801-801 WPFW-FM. That's how you do it, okay? And we want to make sure we let everybody know. Reverend Melvin, quick question for you, sir.
Yes, sir.
When we were little boys back in the 1960s, little bitties, you know, short pants, high-top brown shoes with those blue socks with the red and white stripe at the top, and pictures at Olin Mills, you know that time frame. There was a song that encapsulated by a sister who came out from Detroit. Her father was a pastor, and she was a famous soul singer. Some called her the Queen of Soul. And she had a tune. She lived in Buffalo for a while over there in Fruitvale, you know. But she had a tune in 1967 that encapsulated what we are working for in the movement for freedom, justice, equality, rights, benefits, and dignity. Do you remember that sister's name? It keeps slipping my mind. What is it, Reverend Melvin?
No, don't you talking about my girl Aretha Franklin? Don't go there, man. No, that's my girl.
And then she gave us a spelling lesson of some sort. What did she tell us? What was it, Reverend Melvin? She told us. What did she tell?
Was it R-E-S-E-C-T?
She said R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Respect. Yes. Well, you stay right there, Reverend Melvin, and you stay right there too, listener. We're gonna take these pledges. We'll be back with more on To Heal DC right after this.
And this is Joni. We are continuing with hour 2 of our 3-hour special. This hour we are honoring sanitation workers in Washington, D.C., but also in Baltimore, Maryland, where 2 sanitation workers tragically died, and most of us knew nothing about it. So that is why we are playing that song. Respect. We still need respect for the sanitation workers. And I'm very honored and pleased. In a moment, we're going to be joined by David Sudberry, who is with in the leadership of the DC AFSCME District Council 20. But I want to welcome on board Darrell Alexander. Happens to be a longtime friend of mine, but also happens to be an industrial hygienist who is very much involved with the situation of the death of the 2 sanitation workers in Baltimore, and will tell us exactly what happened and what needs to happen to prevent deaths like this in the future. So welcome, Darryl.
Thank you, Joni.
Glad you could be with us, and perhaps it's no surprise that we didn't hear, most of us did not hear a word about 2 sanitation workers recently losing their lives. So tell us, first of all, what happened.
Well, very briefly and very tragically, the first worker died in July of this year of heat exhaustion. He was a young father, Ron Silver. He was 36 years old, and towards the end of his shift on that very hot July day, he literally collapsed. His coworkers and neighbors who tried to rally him were unable to do so, and he was taken to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. The second tragic and preventable death happened in November when Timothy Cartwell, a sanitation worker, was pinned between a pole and the garbage truck in an alley, in a very defective garbage truck, old equipment that was probably needed to be sidelined early on. Unfortunately, this is just, one of many sanitation and Department of Public Works deaths in Baltimore. as recently as 2021, another sanitation worker was killed on the job. Fortunately, AFSCME in Baltimore has been continuing its pressure and demands on the Department of Public Works and joined in a coalition that recently got a heat stress standard in Maryland to protect all workers exposed to heat and the horrible conditions that heat produces in overexposed workers.
So that means there's a chance that this kind of death is not going to happen again in the near future?
It certainly improves the odds of all those sanitation workers and workers who are exposed to extreme heat. And we're very heartened by it. I mean, AFSCME was a key leader in the fight to get this standard. It took us 4 years in Maryland to get it. And it's the unions in Maryland that will make sure that employers adhere to the standard and provide the shade, water, and rest that workers overexposed to heat need.
And in a moment, I'm going to ask some of our comrades from the DC asked me to ask you some questions as well. But Darrell, you shared with me that Bill Lucey was very much aware of the need for this heat standard, and he would have been right there with you. Can you share a little bit about Mr. Lucey's concerns?
Well, yes, Bill Lucey was a key leader in the fight to get stronger OSHA standards for all workers, and I think he was really sensitized to the kinds of dangerous conditions that sanitation workers face in Memphis when he fought not only for dignity but better working conditions. And Bill fundamentally understood how hazardous and dangerous that work is, and the exposures to heat, bad equipment, traffic, the contaminated waste that these workers come into contact with. And Bill, maintained his fight for stronger OSHA standards, throughout his life. We're very indebted to him for that. And he wanted a heat stress standard. He wanted stronger standards that would protect all workers from, the just innumerable hazards that they face and the preventable deaths.
Yes, and those preventable deaths is where, I guess, and Darrell, this is Brother Jamil with this question. We in Baltimore just recently experienced the loss of Brother Glenn Middleton from District Council 67 and AFSCME, and I wanted you to talk about some of the formative things that you, as a younger leader in the movement, learned from those who came ahead of you, Mr. Lucey, Mr. Middleton, others who worked together in the Maryland area. What did you gain from them and glean from them as you move forward in the fight?
Well, I mean, I remember that these leaders in AFSCME and also in the private sector, the steelworkers at Sparrows Point in Baltimore took leadership in fighting for the hazards that coke oven workers, black coke oven workers faced at Sparrows Point. They really were so essential at keeping these issues visible and fundamental out there in Maryland. And I think the current leadership at AFSCME has taken heart and is continuing to push for stronger protections, like at Perkins Mental Health Hospital,
yes,
where, years and decades, workers as well as patients have been exposed to
and
violence.
Where is Perkins? Tell us where.
It's in Maryland, in Baltimore. It's a mental health hospital that's notorious for worker injuries from work-related violence It's been chronically understaffed. And currently, AFSCME is taking the leadership to try to get a standard to protect these workers from workplace violence. They're going to be introducing legislation in January in the state legislature in Maryland to demand that the Maryland OSHA protect these workers from violence.
And that is so powerful, Darrell, because that's where the theory of the labor union meets the real-time practice that is helping to protect these workers from workplace violence and the other terrible abuses that had become the norm at Perkins and other locations. And so we here at WPFW are very grateful for you sharing that with us. Joni, do you have anything
Yes, because I know Darrell has limited time this morning. And David Sudberry, if you're ready and if you would like to jump in with a question or a comment, David Sudberry, who is with the DC AFSCME District Council 20 in the leadership role. But if David's not ready to jump in, I'm going to ask you.
David's here. He's here.
David, would you like to ask a question or make a comment? Because, of course, in a way, it's shocking that we here in Washington, D.C., and I don't think the AFSCME DC Council 20 knew about these deaths, but anything you would like to comment or ask Darryl?
Yes, I'll make a comment. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Just to piggyback on what Ms. Alexander said, some years ago, when I was a sanitation worker, I had a driver. We were finished our assignment for that day. He lived close to the office. So what they did, management called him back in to do some overtime. So he had a truck that we had been complaining. This was before I was in the union. We had a truck that was getting complaints about bad brakes. So he went back out, and while he was out, he stopped to help a young lady throw something on the truck. When he got out of the truck, he put the parking brake on. The truck started to roll. The truck rolled. He ran to try to stop the truck. He fell under the truck. The truck rolled over him, and he was killed. This was probably 10 years ago. We also had another worker recently who was in the alley, and he was pinned between a house and a tree, and he suffered great damages. He had to be taken to the hospital. So, I mean, there's dangers that we face every day, and I think the main issue, one of the issues that needs to be addressed is the training. You get the position. I know for me, when I got the position as a sanitation worker, I got the job. I was told to get on the truck and go do the route, go complete the route. No training. They offered no training on how to lift. They give you a 5-10 minute training on how to operate the mechanisms of the truck. How to operate the lift, how to operate the packing system. But I think training is an issue. So the question I wanted to ask Ms. Alexander is, do the Baltimore City, do they offer training to the new hires?
Well, the Department of Public Works in Baltimore, it has a very flawed, if any kind of health and safety program that would include training. You're right, the training is essential. I think, we're very concerned. The city council in Baltimore had a law firm do a review of the health and safety after Ron Silver was killed last summer, and they found that they had really no written program that included, reviewing the kind of conditions workers were under, any training on heat stress, for instance. Ron's coworkers didn't know what to do when their colleague was, under duress. And that would be key in any training on heat stress, what to do if somebody is succumbing to heat stress or heat exhaustion. And we in labor generally would like a more comprehensive, what we call injury and prevention program standard that would require all employers to look at their workplaces, identify all the hazards, and say how they're going to address them, how they're going to keep workers safe, and how they're going to train them on keeping safe on the job.
I just want to say I'm very proud of Darrell Alexander. She's been my friend and a friend of my other friend, Michelle Tingling Clemens, for over 40 years. I've been hearing her talk about these issues since the early 80s. And we're proud of her. And Darrell, if you can just talk a little bit about where we are in the rest of the country with regards to something like a heat standard. How many other states have enacted this? Why isn't it? Why isn't it a federal law in OSHA? So I know that's a lot to respond to, but
well, OSHA in this current administration has published a proposal for a heat stress standard for all workers in the private sector, and it's a pretty good, very comprehensive proposal. And if anybody wants to send in comments to federal OSHA, you have until early January to do that. I encourage everybody to do that. Unfortunately, we are very concerned that this incoming administration will suspend or just, put this back on the burner again. The first Trump administration just dead stopped all standard setting and enforcement programs that were in place under Obama. Right now we just have California, Washington, Oregon, Minnesota, now Maryland, and Nevada just recently passed a very bad heat stress standard that allows the employer to decide when workers are overexposed, not based on the temperature and humidity that are present. So, we're not too thrilled about the Nevada standard, but we're not going to get a comprehensive OSHA standard probably for heat until we get a better administration in.
But Darrell, let me ask you, and as we mentioned earlier, that OSHA was initially passed, I think it was in 1970. Why is it that we do not have a federal standard around heat? And perhaps how many federal standards do we really have in OSHA? I know you have to go soon, but any comments? I mean, those of us who have fought for better protections for workers face every time we propose realistic and stronger protections, as we have employers that they're committed to fighting any new regulation or standard that requires them to protect workers. It takes about 15 years to get an OSHA standard. It's really heartbreaking, and we need, stronger federal legislation that will mandate that OSHA pass really protective standards. And until then, we'll have to rely on states like Maryland and California and Oregon that have what we call state plan OSHA that can form standards that are stronger than what federal OSHA does. And that's what we'll be doing in Maryland. I hope that our brothers and sisters in Virginia, because they have a state plan OSHA in Virginia, will fight to get some standards, and we'll form the leadership that I hope will eventually, get the better federal OSHA standards. And you've been listening to Darrell Alexander. And someday in this country, we need those federal standards. And I would, in the real world that was really committed to helping working people and everyday people, that kind of standard would be linked to a universal health care program, health care for all, which certainly that should include protection for working people. And Darrell, I know you have to go, but probably in other countries where they do have universal health care, do they also have protection more protections for working people?
Oh, they certainly do. In the European Union, they have preventative care. It's linked to all their health care that is offered to everyone in the population. It's an entitlement that is there that isn't here in this country. An entitlement to a safe and healthful workplace, entitlement to access to all the care you need, and even stronger workers' compensation laws and help to rehabilitate workers who are injured on the job.
Well, Darrell, thank you so much for
Yes,
the work
yes.
you've been doing for many, many decades. We're going to rely on you and others as we walk into the future. And we're also going to be calling on our ancestors.
Yes.
Bill Lucy, for sure. We're also going to call, as we mentioned, Dr. Lauren Kerr with the United Mine Workers, who was in the forefront of lobbying for that OSHA to be created. So our ancestors is going to be with us
Yes.
moving forward, as are you listeners. And Darrell, thank you so much for everything you're doing. We're going to be spending some of the rest of the hour talking with our local DC AFSCME Council 20 workers. This is me, Joni, with Brother Jamil. We're in the middle of our second hour
Yes.
of 3-hour special dedicated to I Am a Man, the life and legacy of Bill Lucy. We're going till 1 o'clock with this special, and the station as a whole is going until 8 p.m. with many other programs coming after we leave the airwaves.
Yes,
But
indeed.
we're going to be speaking again with our brothers from AFSCME DC 20. But Brother Jamil, do you have any music or any clips?
Well, one of the things I wanted to add is funny, and no, we didn't practice this that way. It just flowed so naturally and so beautifully, Joni. That's great. But what we'd like to do is to share with you an excerpt from the I Am a Man podcast series that actually details some of the formative work done by Bill Lucy in Memphis in 1968. To hear what David was saying earlier about our brother jumping out of the truck trying to save a life and losing his own. What we learned in Baltimore with the death of our two brothers this summer. And what we see happening around the world. Then Mr. Walker and Mr. Coles died in 1968, being compacted inside a trash truck in Memphis, Tennessee.
And after we hear that, we're going to be coming back to our DC workers with AFSCME DC Council 20, Barry Carey, David Sudberry, and hopefully Darrell Jackson. But let's hear from I Am a Man.
Yes, indeed.
Where it all started was with two AFSCME leaders, Bill Lucy, who was just a young staffer back then, and Jerry Worth, the head of AFSCME at the time. Jerry was a man who never walked away from a challenge.
A strike is a big thing, whether it's a small group or a large group. It's an immense undertaking. And in a place like Memphis on the Arkansas-Mississippi border, it's more than an immense undertaking. It's a fantastic undertaking.
An act of ultimate courage.
Yeah, and well, it's not only courage.
I flew to Memphis from Detroit the morning that the strike started, February 12th. This was different. This was just fundamentally different than anything that we had, at least I had encountered before.
It was February 1968, and Bill Lucy was a tall, lanky union organizer living in D.C.
At the time, I would have been about 31, 32 years old.
Bill had been a union member since his early 20s, but he had just been hired on to work with AFSCME the year before. And suddenly, he gets a call telling him to fly to Memphis.
The president at that time was a fellow by the name of Jerry Worth, who for some mistaken reason thought I knew Memphis, Tennessee, and all of its nuances.
Bill was born in an African-American family in Memphis, but they moved away when he was just an 8-year-old kid.
That's why I say I have no idea why he thought I understood Memphis, Tennessee. I was from Memphis, but I had grown up in California.
Going back to Memphis after so many years, the young Bill Lucy was surprised to find the city hadn't changed that much, as he explained in 1968 to some university researchers.
And I came in February. It was the first time coming back.
Do you have any memory of it, or any recollection of how it was?
Yes. Mm-hmm. There haven't been an awful lot of changes take place since I left, and particularly in the area.
That's not what other folks say now.
Well, in the area that I'm most familiar with.
Is it possible for you to trace your first involvement or the union's first involvement with what happened in Memphis?
At the time when I first became aware of it, I was out in Detroit on another assignment. At that point, it was about a day old, and that it looked like it could be resolved pretty easy, except that we felt that some of our headquarters staff people should be there.
Now, who called you?
The president of the union. And he wanted us to come down and just do what we could to get the problem resolved. We knew about some of the background.
So I went down. I drove to the airport and parked in the short-term parking. That's about it.
Bill Lucy would not see his car for several months.
I for a long time, held the longest parking obligation in the union.
When he landed in Memphis, he began to realize what the sanitation workers were up against. To start with, the timing was all wrong.
Any union in its right mind would not call for a citywide strike in February, the middle of the winter, particularly in the sanitation services. Because you got a garbage strike that nobody smells. There's no pressure. No one had really thought a whole lot about sanitation workers in the city of Memphis or anywhere else for that matter. I mean, the general thought is that you put the garbage outside and it disappears. It's gone the next day. Well, who knew they're sanitation worker? They're invisible. And so they have no political clout. These were jobs that were almost reserved for black and other poor workers. And the city of Memphis was not about to sit down and talk to a union about these kinds of workers.
So Bill Lucy and the union team sat down with the men to find out what exactly was at the heart of the matter.
And when we listened to the workers in this big meeting that they had describe the things that had taken place, the things, I mean, it was just scary to death to hear some of the folks talk about the things that had occurred during their employment with the city.
We didn't have drinking water. We didn't have nowhere to sit, nowhere to eat. Matter of fact, there was a low barbecue, and we used to go around in the back and order our food, and they would give it to us out the back door.
Man, stark conditions there in Memphis, Tennessee, and you're here on To Heal DC, a special edition commemorating the life and work of Mr. Bill Lucy and advancing the cause of black workers everywhere. Our host today is, of course, Joni Eisenberg, and I'm glad to join her. I'm Brother Jamil. Joni, what comes next on the docket?
Okay, again, we're going to be spending the rest of the hour talking about AFSCME DC Council 20. And in a moment, we're going to go to David Sudberry, one of the leaders. But we wanted to welcome, and we're giving him our imaginary drum roll, and that is Chuck Hicks, who, of course, is co-host with me most Mondays on To Heal DC. But for those people who do not know, Chuck Hicks also served many years and was or is still a member of AFSCME District Council 20, was the executive director and also the president. So and I'm sure that Chuck has a lot to say And Chuck also worked very closely with Bill Lucy. We've had, Chuck and I have had Bill Lucy on the airwaves with us pretty much at least once a year, often around Dr. King's birthday or around the assassination date of April 4th. Welcome, Chuck.
Thank you, Joni. One of the things that I was remembering in a conversation with Bill Lucy is that after they decided to do the strike, one of the first things he said in a meeting with all the men, he said, go home and ask your wives if they're going to be a part of this, because we need your wives to support this. This is going to be a long fight. And so you need to go home and tell them what's about to happen and get their support. And that's how the community began to support more and more of the sanitation workers. It started with the wives of the sanitation workers. They were an important entity of the strike.
And Chuck, I can still remember, I think it was one of the first times I met you when we were frequently having sanitation workers from DC on the airwaves together with some sanitation workers from Memphis. And one of the leaders of DC Council 20 at the time, Local 2091, which represents the sanitation workers, insisted that we have, or helped to organize a rally we had at the transfer station and over there near Fort Totten. And I think we had 200, 300, 400 AFSCME members there at the rally with Brother Tom Porter. And there you were. I can still see you there at the rally. So any comments?
Morris Tolson?
Yes, Morris Tolson, who is an ancestor, very much worked with us here at WPFW for years. In fact, he wanted to take our esteemed, as Brother Jamil would call him, godfather, Tom Porter, on a tour of the, what is it called? What's the word? I'm forgetting the word, Chuck. The, where you know, the, if you're in the bathroom and I'm sorry, you guys, you're not helping me. But anyway.
The waste processing plant?
Yes.
Okay.
He was going to take Tom Porter on a tour, and we were going to broadcast it from the station. But any thoughts that you might have, if you can remember, Chuck, about why Morris Tolson made sure we went to that transfer station, and just the struggles that DC AFSCME 20 has had over the decades organizing for decent working conditions. Of course, Josh Williams was also very much a part of AFSCME DC 20. Any other thoughts? And then we hope to have David Sudberry join us again to talk more about the current conditions.
Well, Joni, one of the things that I'm oftentimes reminded is that sanitation workers in DC were one of the impetuses that inspired the rest of the union workers to do what they wanted to do, because the sanitation workers, public works, is always going to be out front. They're going to always make that step out front. We're here to fight. We're here to stand. We won't be moved. And that inspired so many other locals in Council 20 to take that stand. They have always been an inspiration to workers in this city, to the teachers, to public libraries, to the cafeteria workers. They have been the inspiration in Council 20 for lots and lots of and throughout the city. They have just been an incredible inspiration for everybody in terms of willing to fight.
Absolutely. And Chuck, we're proud of the work that you have done and continue to do. And I'm just going to say, as we often say, we're proud of your dad as well.
Yes, indeed.
From Bogalusa, Louisiana, one of the founders of the Deacons for Defense. And Chuck definitely follows in his footsteps. Yes. And we're going to be, again...
Joni, my dad was a union person.
That's right. So tell us about him. Tell it.
He was the president of the paper and sapphire workers in Bogalusa. And they had two unions. They had a white union and a black union. And my dad was the head. And he forced them to do a whole bunch of things. He forced them to integrate the cleanups, the workrooms. There was a little place where black men would go in and had to wash up, and white people had this big area where they could go take showers and all that. And he followed suit and made them integrated. And then after they integrated, nobody wanted to go. And my dad and some black men went in. And after that, the white men stopped going. Wow, they went home dirty while black men shook their baths and went home clean.
Yes, indeed. What a wonderful legacy. And Chuck, we thank you for sharing that with us.
Yes, and of course, Brother Jamil also has a strong labor background.
Well, it's funny. My dad, Chuck, and my grandfather actually is from a little town near Bogalusa. And when we said, when my granddaddy and them said they were going into town, they meant Bogalusa. They were from Liberty, Mississippi. They were from Liberty, Mississippi, in Amite County, across the state line there. But Bogalusa was the big city to us. And I remember my dad, who came up in the CBTU as a special assistant to Mr. Lucy. That's how I met Bill Lucy and Joni in 1972 as a 12-year-old. Wow. I met him, and I was taken aback by really the charisma of this fellow. I was, as a youngster, you look at people, and the optics matter a lot to young people. And I remember seeing him as this tall, swashbuckling, handsome, well-dressed. I mean, he's dripping and tasteful. Even the knot on his tie was perfect. I said, whoa, who is this guy? And he worked with my dad, and my dad worked with him, and they together worked in putting forward an agenda that would be for the dignity, safety, respect, and decency of working people. And I'm very, very proud of that legacy. So, Chuck, I definitely understand where you're coming from.
Absolutely. Chief. And I'm just going to jump in a second and just say that I also come from a union family. My mom was one of the first women to work in the shipyards during World War II in New York City. Wow. One of 10 women working with 12,000 men. She organized to allow women into the union. Yes. And one of the methods that she used to do that was to explain it's going to help everybody if the women are in the union. So we are a union family here. Yes. And Chuck, we want to make sure that we jump back in, and we can probably squeeze in maybe a little extra time too, because we want to go back to David Sudberry, who is with AFSCME District Council 20. The president, Kevin Pogue, was out of the country this week, so he couldn't join us, but we've done a lot of shows in the past with these brothers. David, are you with us?
I'm here, John.
Okay. Of course, there are still remaining many dangers that sanitation workers face right here in the District of Columbia that is not talked about. And one of the things that you shared with me recently is the challenges for the nighttime sanitation workers. So tell us a little bit about that. And we also have Darrell Jackson is going to jump in as well. And I want to thank Darrell Jackson because through talking with him, and he basically was telling me, he can tell it himself, but the lack of respect that is unfortunately too often given by some Department of Public Works supervisors, lack of respect to the sanitation workers. So thanks to Darryl, we played that song, Aretha Franklin. But David, tell us a little bit about the challenges that those nighttime sanitation workers face today, 2024.
So I spoke, after speaking with you, I called one of the managers to see if that was still going on with the one worker behind the truck. And I was told that they have 2 workers behind the truck now. The only time they have 1 worker behind the truck is when they're short. But my issue is there should never be just 1 worker behind the truck. We follow behind the truck and we watch the 1 worker put about 3 tons of trash on the back of the truck by himself. And that's not the only issue. The other issue is the dangers that they face. You need 2 men. You need 1 man to watch the other man's back. You have to navigate through the traffic. People are speeding up and down the streets, and then they work overnight. So there's all kinds of shady characters out there that may walk up to them, that may try to do something to them. So They definitely need 2 men on the truck. So it was a fight for us to get those 2 men. I wasn't aware that they did have them, but they have recently hired new people, so they have 2 men on the truck. But I still have an issue with them having 1 man on the truck, even when they're short. So and something that my brother just said that made me think when he spoke on dignity. You know, when I was listening to the I Am a Man podcast, I was listening to Dr. King's speech, and one of the phrases that he said was, whenever you're engaged in the work that serves humanity and is for the building of humanity, it has dignity and it has worth. And I think that, you know, management, especially upper management, like the mayor and the people in the mayor's office, I think they have lost touch on the fact that we are serving the humanity, and you know, our job as sanitation workers has dignity and worth. I think they don't believe that. That's why, you know, we can't get the basic needs. You know, that's why we can. Well, fortunately for us, when it comes to the weather conditions and the heat, we do have cooling stations. They do allow us to go into a cooling station, but it's frowned upon from management. You know, you might have some retaliation brought against you. So I just think, you know, we're in the fight every day. We have a long way to go, and Brother Darrell, he's still there, so he can speak on what's actually really going on now.
Yes, welcome, Darrell Jackson. I'm glad you could be with us. So tell us a little bit what it's like for you and your fellow workers. What are some of your concerns?
Well, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Hello to everyone, first of all. The concerns that I have is, and this goes for any department, it's like, I'm going to piggyback off of what Mr. Sudberry said, it's some type of retaliation against the workers if they go too far with their complaints. And the morale level where I'm at is real low. It's real low. The people that work there is very upset with management. There's a lot of favoritism going on, and I'm quite sure that goes for any department. And you know, it's a lot of bullying. It's just so much going on. Yeah.
Bullying.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we're not talking about school children.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, exactly. It's
Wow.
like.
And let me just, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Darryl. So when Darryl and I were talking, I asked Mr. Jackson, was it like this when Marion Barry was the mayor? And what did you tell me?
It was so peaceful. It was very peaceful, and the management was different. So
that's right.
The management was more lenient to the workers.
Yeah.
So now, this management staff now is kind of aggressive. Not all of management, but some. Some take their position too far, so to speak.
Wow.
And of course, that as many of our listeners would agree, that goes to the leadership of the city. The leadership plays a key role.
Exactly. It starts from the top.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Mary Barry made sure that regular working people were given respect. RESPCT. Right?
That's right. That's right.
Respect, and I can say that as I myself was a DC government worker, and I saw the difference when he was no longer with us.
Put it like this: it's a lot of infringing on the labor laws as far as the workplace too.
Mm-hmm. Because
a lot of people not they don't have a clue about their union laws, like the ULP.
And what is ULP?
Labor practice. Mm-hmm. They don't know. A lot of them don't know about that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just too much going on. I can, so to speak, for my workplace, from what I've been seeing, and I've been here 21 years. Yeah. And I hear the complaints because some guys come to me because they know my brother Barry was the president. Now he's retired, so they come to me for advice. I'd be like, man, you gotta talk to your union rep. I can only tell you but so much because I'm not in the union.
But your courage this morning, Brother Darrell, is coming out, and I want to thank you and Brother David again for telling these real live frontline accounts of what the people who are perhaps the most basic and elemental of public servants are experiencing in the nation's capital. It's quite an irony that you would have this happening here, but as government all over the country moves toward privatization and to trying to eviscerate the rights of workers by crippling labor union movements and all of the other things that are happening around the country, what do you think it is that we can do as a community to unite behind the brothers and sisters who do the work every day? That question is for Darrell and for David. What can we do to start today getting behind you?
You want to go first, Sudberry?
Yeah, I'll go first. I just think we just need your support. You know, we need what I normally do when I was out there, and I got you know, it may be a citizen that wanted to thank me for something. What I would have them to do was write a letter. I'll say write a letter to the director, write a letter to the mayor,
correct,
showing, you know, stating what you just said. You know, you gave me praise for something. Put that on paper. So I think that we just need to unite. You know, it's not just the union, but you know, regular people.
The whole community.
Yeah, absolutely, David. And let me just say, and we've said this before, and when Kevin Pogue, the president, comes back, we'll be meeting with him and you as well. We're entering into many of us feel a frightening and very concerning period coming forward. We need to unite more. We need to collaborate and organize together. So we here at WPFW want to stand with you at AFSCME District Council 20. And for people who don't know it, AFSCME District Council 20 actually represents many federal workers. So now is the time, as never before, to really continue to build strong coalitions, and we're here to say we want to build and collaborate with you, David Sudberry, with you, Darrell Jackson, with Kevin Pogue, and with the people, the workers of AFSCME District Council 20. And I know Chuck agrees with me, and so does Brother Jamil.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I think it's so important that citizens realize the important work that Public Works and all unions in the District of Columbia do, and that what they need is support. You know, they need to have people being supported, and it's like a two-pronged thing there. You support us, and we can do better for you. But if you're not supporting us, and you see things going on, and you don't speak up, or you don't go to a council room and say, "Why is this happening?" Then it makes that job harder. It makes public work jobs harder. It makes it harder if you work in the health department, wherever you are. So this is a coalition that just because you're not in the union doesn't mean that the union isn't important to you, because it's because of the union that you get many of the kinds of services that you get, and you get them at the level that you want because of the union. But when you don't back the employees,
yes, sir,
their issues, it makes it very difficult to give you the kind of service that you expect. And it's not always our fault. It's because you're not supporting us, letting managers know that, hey, they're doing a good job. These things are happening. You got one man on a truck, and that's unsafe. You got one man handling all these bags and things with all kinds of diseases and germs in them, and they carry. So we need to make sure that they're sanitized, because they can spread it to all of us. And so that's a connection. That's a real connection with the unions and workers and the community.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm glad you said they can spread the germs, the environment we work in. I'm all too familiar with that because I have a lot of certifications. I have a bloodborne and pathogen certification. I have a HIPAA certification. I have my CPR and first aid, and I have a CDL human trafficking certification. So I'm all familiar with the germs and stuff, how dangerous it is, especially with the dead animals. Oh, wow. The dead animals I'm gonna give you an example. If you go to pick up a dead animal and that animal is bust open, all bloody, the pathogens are sticking to your clothes. That's what they don't teach you. They stick to your clothes now. Your clothes are contaminated, and say like you wear those same clothes home, you contaminating your whole house.
Think about it. Think about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's under the OSHA law. So
you're listening to Brother Darrell Jackson. You're listening to Brother David Sudberry, our brothers from District Council 20 right here in the District of Columbia. Our hosts, of course, the great Chuck Hicks, the great Joni Eisenberg, and even me, Brother Jamil. You're listening to WPFW 89.3 FM right here in Washington. It's the top of the 12 o'clock hour, and we've got much more for you. Joni, what's coming up?
Yes, and I think we do a little bit more of that respect. And again, I want to thank Darrell Jackson for making me think about that song with regards to the sanitation workers.
You're welcome, Miss Joni. and me and Miss Joni had a good conversation last night, and it went well. I'm glad she spoke with me.
Yes, and I'm glad you spoke with me because, again, we're talking about building coalitions. We are not meant to be out here separately, all by ourselves. And the union is not supposed to be just by itself. We need to be collaborating now more than ever. And certainly that's what Bill Lucy is telling us. He's telling us, I can hear him. I'm sure that Brother Jamil hears him well as well. So David Sudberry, Darrell Jackson, and we're also going to be talking with Barry Carey, with Kevin Pogue. We need to be really working together with you and with the community as we walk into this new year.
No doubt about it. Thank you, gentlemen.
This Darrell Jack, can I speak on something else real quick?
Sure, real quick.
I was speaking with Miss Joni about the morale level and how that can get dangerous. And because the guys get so upset, you don't know what they're thinking, don't know what's on their mind. So somebody has to set the example for the guys to show leadership and show respect. Because if you don't, it can get a little dangerous.
Yeah, and respect is the key word because all of us, but we're talking specifically about the sanitation workers who too often, from 1968, before then, but certainly up until now, we're going into 2025, are not given the respect that they deserve. Right. So thank you, Darryl. Thank you, David. Thank you, Chuck. And we're going to play a little bit of that music. And then, Chuck,
Can I say one quick thing? One of the important things that Bill Lucy did, and he recognized, was the CBTU, the Coalition of Black Trade Unions. That was formed primarily because blacks didn't have the voice in these unions that they wanted to have. And by bringing all the black union leaders together, forming an organization, it gave them an incredible amount of power. Also, Brother Lucy was very sharp about trying to understand the mental challenges that blacks and unions face. And that was an important piece for him to try to keep people mentally alert in terms of the fight. It's more than just doing the fight, but mentally there's a whole bunch of challenges that you have to be prepared to do when you become a union leader or a union member. Part of that is just mentally what you have to go through once you're seen as a union leader or a union member who's active.
All right. You heard it. You heard it from the voice of authority. These are our brothers who know. Brothers, I want to thank you and invite you to stay with us. Our program segment is about to change, but not the spirit of commitment to lift up the voices of working people everywhere. Black workers in America, in the legacy and tradition of Bill Lucy. This one's for you, Darryl. We're going to bring you a little music right here. You asked about this tune, Respect, and we curated it. Joni and I worked on this together because we're going to give you the version by the man who wrote the tune. Aretha made it famous, but this is the guy who wrote it, the great Mr. Otis Redding. Respect.
That's right.
And what you need, baby, you got it. All I'm asking for a little respect when I come
Otis Redding in respect, and now more respect by way of Joni Eisenberg. Joni?
And we are now pleased to be in our final hour of our 3-hour special. Again, WPFW is dedicating the entire day up until 8 p.m. tonight for a tribute to Bill Lucy and the Black Workers Movement. We're focusing our last hour, continuing with I Am a Man, the life and legacy of Bill Lucy. We're going to be hearing a little bit more music this hour, but I am excited to introduce our next speaker, CLAYOLA Brown, and I'm very excited to have CLAYOLA Brown with us right now, even though Ms. Brown, I can't find my notes, but I know that I have known of CLAYOLA Brown for many, many years. She is the international president of the APRI, A. Phillip Randolph Institute. She is on the executive committee of CBTU, Coalition of Black Trade Unionists, and she has a very strong history, of course, in labor. She's been on this program many moons ago. I don't know if she remembers, but we are excited and pleased to have Miss CLAYOLA Brown join us. Good afternoon.
Welcome.
And welcome.
Good afternoon. I've been eavesdropping and listening to all of the friends of Bill with legacy and history and enjoying the program. And good afternoon to you, Joni. Thank you very much for the invitation to be with you.
And we're thrilled to have you. So before we talk about Bill Lucy, and we hope to have you on really for a longer time, perhaps during Women's Month in March, but just give us a little bit more about your history in labor and how you, I guess, got to know Bill Lucy and got involved with CBTU, et cetera. But tell us a little bit about your journey.
Okay, well, I think the best way for me to do that is to fess up, first of all. I'm from South Carolina, so that makes me a Geechee. And I was lucky enough to have a mother who was also very strong about rights, human rights, labor rights, the whole nine, and who never backed down about anything. So about 15 years old, almost 16, almost 16, my mom brought me into the plant with her during the summer to make sure that I understood what hard work was like. There were two different plants. One was where we made flatbeds or pallets, as they call it, to move things around. So she ran the saw and I caught the wood from her.
Wow.
And she did not ease up on me, not one bit. So I learned what it was to be quick if you want to be safe. But the next job was to go into a shop right in Charleston, not far from home actually, called Manhattan Shirt Factory. And at that particular shirt factory is where a good number of my family lived and worked. And in the plant, it wasn't organized yet, but I tell you what, they had strength in that plant because they all stuck together. I understood very clearly what being in unison or lockstep, like Mama called it,
yes,
really meant and what a difference it made. So when I went to work for, it was then the Textile Workers Union of America, which then became Amalgamated Clothing and Textile Workers Union after a merger, which later became. We had about 5 mergers before we became Workers United, a subsidy, or I don't know what you call us. I guess a council of SEIU. We are an arm of SEIU.
Yes.
And I smile because it's a good thing. But taking a look back at the history, I remember mostly that the word that I heard as a working person in the factory was dignity and respect.
Yes, ma'am.
And that stayed with me the full time. Now, in '74, I met Bill Lucy, who taught me a whole bunch. But the same 2 words came out of his mouth within 5 minutes of getting to know who he was and what CBTU was. A good friend of mine, Jean Hervey, who was also a member of the union, my union, was the person that introduced me to CBTU. and I knew I was home immediately. But there's a long history, a long deal of involvement, and I don't know where you want me to start or how you want me to start.
Well, you
I'm
started.
ready. You tell me where you want me to go.
You started very beautifully with the description of coming from the Low Country there in South Carolina, and take it from an Overbrook Panther. We salute any Simon Gratz Bulldog that's in the house. So we're very, very grateful that you came up through these traditions of folks working in different contexts for dignity and respect. Yes, equal pay for equal work. Yes, the right kind of hours of work. But you can be surprised. You can have all of the legal protections, and if there's no basic dignity nor respect in the workplace can become toxic and dangerous to stay within. Yes. And so with all of your accolades, certainly the awards that you've received and the way that you've served in this movement and your interaction with Mr. Lucy indicates to me, and I've never met you socially, but certainly this impressive curriculum vitae indicates that you never take the gloves off. Like you stay in the fight. And my question is, how do we fit ourselves for the battle? How do we stay involved and stay inspired to continue to fight in political times like these?
Well, it becomes almost a temptation. It's not habit. You find that the labor movement is something that's addictive. Because if you were raised to fight for what was right, that never leaves you. I talked to you just a half a second about how my mother introduced me to the importance of dignity and respect, and then meeting Brother Lucy. The same thing made itself known right away. But along the way, there was an opportunity to meet some good, solid trade unions. I've been 57 years with my union and proud of every single moment of it.
Yes, ma'am.
But inside of that, I had the real good fortune, and because of hard work too, nobody gave it to me because they liked me, had to work for it.
Right.
I became the director for education in my union. I became the director for civil and human rights in my union, and I still do that for our merged union. I got an opportunity through the relationship with Bill and a sister named Gloria Johnson.
Oh, Gloria
And others
Johnson.
who were fighters in that field to do some work at another level, one that I never thought somebody like me would ever attain. I was able to go on the executive council of the AFL-CIO. Oh my God. When asked by folks to join that council, I was blown away. What, me? Are you sure? But the confidence that they gave and the support that they gave through the battles that we had to fight was many years before that happened. That just didn't fall out of the sky. At the beginning of the relationship with CBTU, there was a choice to be made. There was a conflict about who folks should be voting for, how we should be running campaigns all over the country inside of our individual unions. Well, this organization, a coalition of Black trade unionists, decided to pull all the Black folk together under Brother Lucy's leadership. We had a meeting where we discussed how it is that we wanted to spend our vote.
Yes, ma'am.
But the biggest portion of that was that our unions told us that we couldn't go. So the decision was one whether or not you were going to stand up for what you believed in, or were you going to, sit back because you were scared of your job. I've done a whole heap of things, so it didn't really become a tough question for me. I was still young, I was still strong, all of that. And a good fight was something that I really liked. I was a lot like Mama.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So when we came together, each of us was told by a Bill who stood flat-footed in front of this huge crowd of activists that you know that when you get back, somebody may tell you that you don't have a job. And instead of it getting quiet, folks started applauding. Because where there was one, there was always going to be another if you were willing to fight and work at it.
That's right.
And that's the platform for becoming an activist inside of CBTU.
And that's
and
the
all
heart
of
of
the
the
struggles
fighter.
that were there were based on those two things, dignity and respect.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. The heart of a fighter. You're listening to WPFW. This is To Heal DC, and our guest this morning, or this afternoon, I should say, is our sister in labor and in the struggle for human dignity, Miss CLAYOLA Brown. And she's with us and has a lot to add to this discussion. Another question comes to mind. Ma'am, I have to ask about the various different aspects of how you saw the struggle for workers' rights in different areas of the demographics of the United States. You've seen it happen in red states. You've seen it happen in what are called blue states. You've seen these things happen in rural areas. In Opelika, Alabama, you've seen it happen in the major cities. What are the things in common that workers share in the struggle for this dignity and respect as you see it?
Well, what I've seen from the Deep South, of course, was what has always been talked about, the separation and the segregation and plain old racism. But up South, in those northern cities where we have to work too, up South is what it really is. Those things did not disappear just because they were up South. It was just dressed up and fancied up so that folks would not call it what it was. But there's a saying, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig, right?
My Lord, my Lord.
And for those of us that had to stand up for that, we had to call that pig out every now and then, no matter what the location was.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's always tied to those same two things, the dignity of work and the respect of a human being. But we were taught also along the way that unless you respected yourself, you couldn't fight for it for anybody else.
My goodness, my goodness. And this is apologies to the staple singers, but that's very, very true. You got to respect yourself. And I'm very, very grateful for these comments because clearly you saw in the United States a at least two-tiered wage and compensation system. In the United States, you saw the down south version, whether it was at the paper plant in Bogalusa, whether it was over the cotton gin in Bogachita, Mississippi, where my granddaddy was working, or whether it was at the Bud Company in North Philadelphia, or or Tasty Cake or GE on 32nd and Market Street. See, there was always that two-tiered, segregated system. And for you as a pioneer in bursting through that, and the job isn't complete. I know you would say it's not complete yet, but what is an inspirational thing that you can share with us about what we can do as a listener? I'm just driving in my car, listening to WPFW. I'm inspired by Mrs. CLAYOLA Brown. What do I do now? What's my next step?
Well, unfortunately, a whole bunch of us are going to revisit that in real time with this current newly elected administration that's coming forward. And folks got to get woke, all right, and stay woke. Because folks who are prejudiced or biased try to be slick. But for those of us who understand it, you don't have to make a whole bunch of noise. Just sit quiet for a second, because it's going to float to the top. I started to say a bad word.
No.
Always floats to the top, and it's not going to be any different now. All right?
Yes, indeed.
And for a female, it's a trifecta. It's being an activist, it's being a woman, and it's being Black.
My goodness.
Absolutely.
If you hit that, you know it's coming at you.
Yes.
And a piece of it is to make sure that, as you were talking about it in the front end of the program, that you don't think that you can stand by yourself. There are some things you can stand by yourself for, but unity and solidarity is the one where you're going to get your strength. And it doesn't mean just women sticking together. It means brothers standing up with us and we standing up for them.
Yes, ma'am.
Because the battle is not going to be a weak one. Trust and believe on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Especially when the dialogue came very early on about a Black job. Well, I saw 18 shades of red coming out of my head when I heard that.
Wow.
And had hoped that everyone else heard it in the same way.
I think
because there's been a fight for equality and equity all these years. And then some fool's gonna stand up and talk about a Black job as if that's not insulting. It's aggravating, it's annoying, and it's ignorant.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
so
ma'am.
we've got to be prepared for the battle ahead by staying woke for real.
And how important is it to the
pay raises are going to be different. The Access to better jobs will also be different. Take the lineup of friends that are now coming to the District of Confusion.
Yes, ma'am.
DC has never been as crazy as it will be this time, even during the first administration of Mr. Crazy Man. I will not call anybody by names.
No, you don't have
It's
to.
going to be different.
I want to
Because
jump
now
in.
there is very little fear because no checks and balances, as they were then, are very handily at hand. Supreme Court's on lockdown pretty much. States and their judicial system is also in jeopardy because of the ownership of that and who sits in those seats. Punishment is up for grabs because folks are now saying that some folks will not have to pay for the bad doings that they did. But if we are alert, remember we didn't have all of the accoutrements always, but we figured out how to stay alive, how to prosper, and how to help other people. So I'm counting on that inbred stuff to keep us going the way it ought to and the way it has been for years.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
To make sure that we don't lay down. I'm sorry, I can go on.
CLAYOLA Brown, before you leave us, I want to ask you a specific question, which I know you'll be able to answer. Phillip Randolph, and
yes,
one of the things that I like to do whenever I used to go to Union Station every day and speak to him and at his at the beautiful statue there at Union Station, I wonder if you could. I used to know this by heart. Quote the quote from Phillip Randolph about the importance of organizing, but we must be seated at the table, and we're at the table. Do you know that quote off the top of your head?
Of course I know it. Do I know it verbatim? Absolutely not. You will have to go to a Norm Hill who has said that for a lot of years. And it's the quote on at the banquet table. There are no whatever seats, okay? You've got to fight for it, and freedom is never given. It's all over the board in my head, because as it is said, and as the quote is read, you get the energy from the words. Now, it is on our website. I've been the president for the A. Phillip Randolph Institute for 20 years.
And it's right there at Union Station as well.
And at Union Station, we had to fight to get Randolph's statue back up, and it's only gone back up in the last 3 months.
That's right.
Wow.
I was shocked to see it gone. Nobody could answer what happened to the statue, but I'm glad you organized to get it back up there.
Well, Amtrak and Union Station were at odds, and they decided that the best place for him was by the Starbucks counter, and then people started to steal his glasses and disfigure the statue. So we started raising sand. Not only by saying that it was wrong, but by showing up and knocking on the door and making phone calls. And this past, I guess it's 3 months now, time is flowing by. There was a settlement between the two entities about who owns what area in that whole facility. And thank God the people who are there for Union Station said that Randolph will be back, not only back in any given spot, but in the specific place where he is entitled to stand, and that's in the main hall.
And
that has never been his place before, but it's there now.
Yes,
and that's because we were not polite. We were persistent in getting him back. So please go by. He's encased in a nice glass cage now, so that you can see everything, including the quote, and be able to just follow through with recognizing the power that man held. He has done some amazing things.
Yes.
Joni,
and here's a few words from the statue. You get what you can take, and you keep what you can hold. Freedom is never granted, it is won, and I really encourage people to go by that statue in Union Station as often as you can and speak to A. Phillip Randolph. You can talk to him. He's right there, and you can read that quote. I'm telling you, he is right there. And I also am excited to announce, CLAYOLA Brown, that today on WPFW at 6 p.m., we're going to be, I think, broadcasting parts of the movie Miles of Smiles, which I believe is about the history of A. Phillip Randolph and the Pullman Porters.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And I'm extremely excited, and CLAYOLA Brown, and someday in the future, we want to do a show dedicated to the women, the sisters who were Pullman Porters. All of this is part of the history that we are not taught. But we're going to be teaching it and continuing to teach it. And with your help, CLAYOLA Brown, we're going to make sure that, what A. Phillip Randolph was talking about, to have a seat at the table, you have to organize. And we're going to have to step up our organizing as much as we can in the coming days, months, and years, so that labor and the community are working more and more and more together.
No doubt. And Joni, if I may jump in here, before you go, Ms. Brown, I want to thank you for helping to preserve and to burnish the legacy and reputation of the Honorable A. Phillip Randolph, because in my family, and Joni, you heard me talk about my granddaddy earlier, coming up out of Liberty, Mississippi. He and my Uncle Lazarus had to leave town suddenly after a certain kind of incident at the cotton gin one day. And they came north in a hurried and, a furtive kind of fashion. Stopped in Yazoo City and then in Memphis and ended up in Chicago. And both of them were Pullman car porters under the leadership of A. Phillip Randolph. And our family made it to the Midwest in that way. And that legacy of taking what you can getting and then holding what you got is the legacy that echoes in our ears and hearts today. So we thank you so much for joining us this morning on this special edition of To Heal DC right here on WPFW. Joni, you know how to put together a radio program. You really do.
I couldn't have done it without you, Brother Jamil. And again, CLAYOLA Brown, Brother Jamil's father was one of the founders of CBTU.
You probably knew my daddy. You knew Leonard Ball. Everybody knew Leonard Ball.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that's my daddy. Last time I saw you, Miss Brown, I was a little boy, and that was me with the afro and the striped T-shirt. That was me.
Yes, Leonard was one of my mentors for sure.
Yes,
absolutely.
And his wife is now your mom, was my friend, and still is.
That's right, and she cute too. She's my girl.
That's right, and we call Brother Jamil Katia because named him the brilliant and beloved Brother Jamil, who can be heard every Tuesday morning from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. And CLAYOLA Brown, I encourage you to listen to him. He's an extremely wonderful show. Very, very inspiring. And CLAYOLA, we're going to have you on more frequently. Before you go, we want you to hear us that this is our pledge drive, our last week of the year, where we're asking people to make a pledge to the station. We haven't been letting people know how we could do it. We do have a anonymous. Wow, we have an anonymous pledge from Silver Spring, a very, very generous pledge. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We had a pledge earlier from Gaithersburg, a very nice pledge as well. My long-term friend Amy made a pledge from far away. And we still have ways to go to really make our goal. And again, you wouldn't be hearing us if it wasn't for you, the listeners, contributing. We don't get any money from the bomb manufacturers who are killing thousands and millions of people around the world. We don't get any money from the unhealthy food people that gives you the sodas and the sugars and the unhealthy stuff that makes us sick. We get our we are here because of you. So please, listeners, we haven't been begging that too much today, but we need you to make a pledge. For the last half hour of this program, 1-800-222-5879. Is that right?
No, 9739.
9739.
1-800-222-9739, or go to WPFWFM.org right there and click on Donate Now. You will not regret your decision to back this station. We are literally unique among radio stations, and you don't get this kind of content anywhere else in radio. You're certainly not going to get it on some station that's pumping out mumble talk and foolishness. No. You're gonna hear that right here at WPFW.
And give us the text way to do it.
I thought you'd never ask, Joni. I thought you'd never ask. The way you do it by text is, because we're high tech now. We're not playing with y'all. We through playing with you, okay? You go to your text, you grab your device, you text to 801-801 and put the following letters in. Ready? It's WPFWFM. Real simple. 801-801. And then in the body of the text, WPFWFM. And because of that, you'll hear and see the greatness of this station continuing well into our 48th year. We've been on the air 47 years here at WPFW,
Absolutely.
putting love in action, serving 100% of the 99, and earning the moniker Jazz and Justice Radio. You'll be glad that you gave. You'll be glad you became a part of this community, because WPFW is not just the folks here at the microphone. It's not just the folks in the office or running the station executively. No. WPFW is you right there with that bonnet on your head and them fluffy house shoes in there popping your fingers to the beat. That's WPFW, a community alive and working toward freedom, justice, and equality.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And CLAYOLA Brown, we WPFW is going to be moving. This is actually the last day that I'm going to be here in the studio. We're moving to a temporary location, folks. So next week, the music programmers will be broadcasting from a different place. But give us a pledge in honor of our last week here at this home that we've had here on K Street for a while. We need your support. We need your love as we walk into this uncertain future. But we know that together with you, we're going to make a new world possible. And we're going to have CLAYOLA Brown on with us in the future. Miss CLAYOLA, I want to also thank Shauna Peaks, who is a part of the youth. She just aged out of the youth youth CBTU leadership, but she's still just 40 years old. Thanks to Shauna Peaks for helping me make sure we got a hold of CLAYOLA, and we're so thankful we did, Miss Brown, and we look forward to working with you on into the future.
Yes, indeed.
Well, thank you so very much for having me. Thank you so very much.
Yes, you're welcome.
Take care, and I will follow you wherever you go. Jamal, you'll hear from me soon.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful.
Yes, ma'am.
And Brother
Take good care, folks.
You too now.
Take care now.
Bye-bye.
And Brother Jamil was going to do a whole hour of music. You have some music ready? Or
I got a few things up my sleeve. I just wanted to let folks know, Joni, your program this morning has inspired me to do greater things and to work harder in the cause for right, freedom, justice, and equality, to study more, to learn more, to share more, and to allow others to share with me. I'm really in a high spirit this morning, and this is why WPFW has the value that it does in your day and in your schedule and for your family and for your friends. We know you'll support the station. We're going to play the music, but I wanted to let you know how much we appreciate you in advance, because you're going to WPFWFM.org, clicking the Donate Now button, and making it happen, and we appreciate you. Now, if Elliot Gross was here, on because, this is his day, right? It's Monday, and he would never forget the blues. And we can't forget the blues either, especially as it relates to working folks. So there's every song doesn't have to be a message song, because workers are human beings, and sometimes human things happen to us. I want you to listen to Albert King, his version of the Detroit Junior original. The tune is called Call My Job. Listen here.
Silence is giving me hell. Baby, cut that thing off. I hear it killing me. Ooh-wee. What is that you got on you smelling so good? I ain't going to work today, I know. Call my job. Tell the boss I won't be in. I said call my job. Or you can tell him I'm sick, tell him anything. But I just had too much weekend. On Saturday I caught the horses, and today I got $1,000. I said Saturday I caught the horses, and today I got $1,000. Oh, you look so good to me this morning, darling, till I ain't thinking about getting up. After Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I don't want to go to work on Monday. I said after Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you know I don't want to go to work on Monday. After that long weekend, darling, I don't want to do a thing but lay around with you. Take the phone off the hook, put a note on the door too. I don't want to do a thing but spend this time with you. Call my job and tell the boss I won't be in. 'Cause my head is in a spin, girl. I've had too much weekend. He said I'm fired. Oh, no. You can't do that to me. Did you really take the phone off the hook? You can't take a joke. I never seen a woman like you phone all days of my life. Now, what you gonna do about paying the bill? Yeah, I said the bill. Now, you got the gas bill, the light bill, not counting the food bill. You got the electric bill, and you got the water bill. Look like you're gonna have to get a job. And I don't want you coming in fussing, saying I'm pimping when I asked you how much the check is every weekend. Are you listening? They call it Stormy Monday, but Tuesday's just as bad. They call it Stormy Monday, but Tuesday's just as bad. Wednesday's worse, Lord, and Thursday's also sad. The eagle flies on Friday, and Saturday I go out to play. Friday and Saturday I go out to play.
Sunday I go to church and I kneel down and pray. And this is what I say, baby. Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy on me. You know I cried, Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy on me. You know I'm trying to find my baby. Won't somebody please send her home to me? Well, I cried, Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy on me. I said I cried, Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy on me. You know I'm trying to find my baby. Wow, send her home to me. Oh, yeah. Been working all day like I'm doing time. The foreman say you got to do some overtime. Mr. Foreman got to tell you I can't wait too long. 'Cause I got to get on home to my love home. I know my baby's waiting 'cause she's anticipating. But I want to be connected so our love can be protected. Going home and get my love on. I'm gonna check for my love on. Mr. Foreman, please slow down. This is assembly line. I think you'd better cut out all this overtime. Now overtime might help to make my money long, but it gives my neighbor time to steal my love on. I know my baby's waiting, she's anticipating, but I wanna get connected so our love can be perfected. Yeah. I'm going home and get my love on. I'm going home and get my love on. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Get on home. Woo. You gon' bring out the best in me. All a man is supposed to be. Get it. All right. Get it. Well, check it out, baby. Get on. Yeah, go on, get my love on. If I were you, I'd take my love on. I'm going home and get my love on. Oh yeah, yeah. Go home. I know fellas ought to go home. You take like James Brown, you better check on your love on. And you Wilson Pickett, you better get on the telephone and check your love on. I don't know that number you gave at the time, 6345789. You better call it right now and check on your love on. Tyrone Davis,
Tyrone Day.
you better check on your love on.
Check on your love on Johnny Taylor. Ooh-wee. Don't act like you're not out there finger popping and thigh slapping. You know you're doing it. This is WPFW 89.3 FM right here in Washington. You're listening to a special edition of To Heal DC right here with your host, Joni Eisenberg. She's going to be with you in just a moment as we recap the music. What did we hear just now? Johnny Taylor talking about a work situation. It's called Love Bones. Mr. Foreman, I can't work too long. We're working all day like I'm doing time, and the foreman say I got to do some overtime. Not today. Johnny Taylor. Right before that, Bobby Blue Bland, Stormy Monday. And you all know they call it Stormy Monday, but Tuesday is just as bad. Right. And then at the top of the set, you, of course, you hear. See, because we got the good stuff for you. I mean, it makes me chuckle because this music is the stuff that it's legendary stuff. We started this off with Albert King. The tune was called Call My Job. Tell the boss I won't be in. We're saluting labor today, and we're also saluting Elliot Gross, who would be here with you on Monday, and he will be back next Monday, Allah willing, and the creek don't rise, but he'll be back here with Don't Forget the Blues. And so tomorrow morning, I'll be with you 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. for Yardbird Sweets.
Yes.
The Yardbird Sweets edition of the Morning Brew. But right now, here she is, the queen of midday radio, the empress of the airwaves herself, Joni Eisenberg. Joni, what's happening?
I'm so honored and happy to be here with Brother Jamil again, the beloved and brilliant Brother Jamil. It can be on tomorrow. You can check him out tomorrow from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. And as we wrap up, I just want to say we are so proud to have dedicated the entire day from 9 a.m. till 8 p.m. to Bill Lucy and the Black Workers Movement. And so you can stay tuned. I'm going to announce what's coming up in a moment. But I just want to say we are very proud, I'm very proud, to have featured once again the sanitation workers of the District of Columbia. And we have been focusing on sanitation workers in D.C. since this show first started, To Heal DC, since 1992. 1992, I want to thank our godfather, Tom Porter, who supported us back then. We had many, many shows talking about the plight of the sanitation workers in the district and in Memphis, and we will be continuing to do so. I've been getting some texts from my friends, and I won't mention their names, but one of the people who works closely with the sanitation workers talking about the conditions are still horrific for the DC sanitation workers. The government is often insensitive to the injuries faced by these workers.
Yes, ma'am.
And sanitation workers are our everyday heroes and sheroes and should be heralded as such. That's what my friend texted me. So we are going to be continuing to focus moving into this next year, 2025, on the sanitation workers as symbols of the importance of labor. And as Bill Lucy, and it's always shocking to me, Brother Jamil, that many people, including sanitation workers, many people do not know Bill Lucy, do not know the story of the sanitation workers in 1968 and what happened. And we didn't quite have time. We were going to play more of the I Am a Man podcast. And I don't know if you know off the top of your head, Brother Jamil, how listeners can find it. But I'm sure for those of you who can Google, you can Google I Am a Man, and it's some riveting 3 or 4 episodes, which has been played on our airwaves in the past. But we need to be kind of integrating it in as we move into the future, because that story, just like we hear these Christmas movies and Christmas songs, this needs to be the story of the Memphis sanitation workers needs to be known by everybody.
That's right.
Just like we know these Christmas carol songs.
Yes,
because it's part of the culture. It's part of the world that we live in, and we need to continue to organize together, not separately. We're working too much in separate silos, even in progressive movements. We need to be coming together, definitely this year more than ever, and we can only do that, listeners, with your support.
That's right.
So we have a few other people to thank. We wanted to thank Patricia from Laurel, Maryland, for making a pledge. Actually, that was for Julian Monroe's show, but we're all in the family here. I want to thank Lorna making a pledge as well from New York. But let's get a few. We have $360 to go to make our pledge goal for this afternoon.
We can do it.
So we know we can do it, and as we know that Miyuki and other people can raise thousands of dollars in the last minute. So we can do it too. We can raise this $360. 1-800-222-9739, 1-800-222-9739. You can go to the old-fashioned website, wpfwfm.org. Click the Donate Now button and make a pledge to Heal DC or whatever you see there on the line there. We only need $360.
That's it.
And we have a few more minutes to go to make that goal. Again, we need you folks. We're all in the family here. You're part of the family, and we're going to need the family to stick together now more than ever as we move into this future. I want to just mention that coming up in the coming hours, a very, very exciting programming. The next hour, 1 p.m., Chris Garlock and Elise Bryant is going to be another close-up look at the life of Bill Lucy, so that's coming up 1 to 2. Then from 2 to 4, a good solid 2 hours of music with none other than Elise Bryant and Violetta Diamond, part of the Sophie's Parlor Collective. Of course, Elise has her own many hats that she wears. So from 2 to 4, that's going to be really exciting music. 4 p.m.
And Joni, this just in. This is flash. This is just in on the wire. Just heard from our intrepid program director, Sister Katia Stitch. She reminded me that at 4 p.m. today, we will be playing, guess what? I Am a Man podcast. It's going to air right here on WPFW, 4 p.m. today, in a special presentation of the I Am a Man podcast that you just mentioned moments before she called. So, Joni, you are doing it and firing on all cylinders
Katia and I
today.
are in sync here.
Yes, indeed.
And we're on the same battlefield.
Yes,
the
ma'am.
battlefield for the people.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's where we know that you guys are on that battlefield right there with us. So that's going to be it's a really riveting podcast. I'm telling you, it should be just like, what's that movie they play at Christmas time, Brother Jamil?
Miracle on 34th Street.
Yeah, Miracle. So we're going to need, that's going to be the Miracle
What made
in
you
Memphis.
think I would know that, Joni? But I tell you hit a point earlier, Joni, that's very important. You said that with these imaginary heroes and the imaginary holidays and the culture of America dumbing people down who could stand up. But it's time, don't get caught slipping, dear parent. Don't let your children have a closet full of Barbie dolls, Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman, Aquaman, and they don't have Nat Turner, and Bill Lucy, and Harriet Tubman, and Sojourner Truth, and Sacco and Vanzetti, and they should have those who stood for what is right and who made a difference in the struggles of people all over the world. We continue in prayer, energy, support for those who are suffering around the globe
Recording
today.
in progress.
We
got
PFWs
in the house.
Wait. We're not your turn yet, Chris. We're wrapping up here.
Chris is ready.
We also need some, you know what, Brother Jamil? We need some Pullman Porter dolls. How about that? How about some Pullman Porter women dolls? And I encourage everybody at 6 o'clock today. I'm so excited. Miles of Smiles, Years of Struggle. And it's the history of the Pullman Porters, which was the first black union in the United States.
That's right.
It's information like that we should be hearing about constantly every day, just like we hear about all this unhealthy stuff on the TV, all these unhealthy insurance things that are trying to privatize our Medicare. We need to be hearing about the Pullman Porters.
Yes, indeed.
We need to be hearing about the struggles of the workers. Everybody should know about what happened to sanitation workers in 1968 and what just happened in Baltimore, where 2 sanitation workers died. We didn't hear a thing about it, did we, folks?
Not a thing.
So we here at WPFW are here to change that, and we're here to change that with you. with you. That's why we still need $360. We have 3 minutes to do it, to make this goal. 1-800-222-9739.